Good evening, everyone. Members of the public gallery should note that the Council records and publishes Council meetings via YouTube to enhance the accessibility of Council meetings to the broader Wellington community. These recordings are also published and archived on Council's website for viewing by the public. Recordings may be used for publicity or information purposes. Members of the public in attendance at the Council meeting who wish to communicate with the Council regarding an agenda item or any other matter should advise the Mayor, ideally prior to the meeting starting, to ensure that their submission is called at the appropriate time during the meeting. Would gallery visitors, councillors and invited online attendees please ensure that mobile phones and other electronic devices are turned off or in silent mode for the duration of the meeting. Wellington Shire Council acknowledges our offices are located in the traditional lands of the Gunai-Kurnai Nation, and we pay our respects to their elders past, present, and acknowledge their ongoing cultural and spiritual connections to their land and waters. We have one apology, which is Councillor Tatterson. I think everyone else is here. Next item is the declaration of conflicts of interest. I believe we might have some. Thank you, Councillor Foat.
Yes, I declare I've got a conflict of interest that relates to Council meeting item 13.1, and I declare that I have a general interest conflict, which is my brother's business, Molinar's Plumbing, is listed as one of the tenders in that item.
Thank you, Councillor Foat, and when that item comes up, I'll make mention of that so we can leave the room. Well, we won't leave the room, you'll leave the room. Councillor Madeley.
Thank you, Mayor. I declare that I have a conflict of interest relating to Council meeting item 14.1. This is a general interest conflict relating to Seed Community Garden, of which I am on the committee, receiving a quick response grant.
Thank you, Councillor Madeley. Any other conflicts of interest? Thank you. Then I move on to item 3, the confirmation of the minutes of the previous council meeting. Do I have a mover there? Thank you, Councillor Foat.
I move that Council adopt the minutes and resolutions of the ordinary council meeting of the 18th of March 2025.
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Lowe. Is that motion opposed? The motion not being opposed, it's carried. Did you wish to say anything, Councillor Foat?
No.
Okay, thank you. We have business arising from previous meetings, none. We have no late or urgent items. Then we move on to item 6.1 in notices of motion. Councillor Foat.
I move that Council writes to the State Energy Minister, the Honourable Lily D'Ambrosio, and Vic Grid, confirming its position for the undergrounding of electricity infrastructure in relation to offshore wind transmission as its preferred method for the following reasons. 1. Enhanced aesthetic and safety. Underground electricity transmission infrastructure conserves the visual appeal of our region, preserving our natural landscapes and reducing visual clutter. It also minimises the risk of bushfire ignition during extreme weather conditions, of which our region is very prone to experiencing in Gippsland. 2. Improve reliability. Underground cables are less susceptible to weather-related disruptions such as storms and high winds, thereby improving the reliability of electricity supply to our residents and businesses throughout Victoria. 3. Long-term cost efficiency. Despite higher initial installation costs, underground transmission lines require less maintenance and have a longer lifespan compared to overhead lines, leading to cost savings over the long term. And 4. Community preference. Our community has expressed a preference, as have all of us during our election period in running for council, for underground electricity transmission due to its minimal impact on the wider community and overall quality of life for our residents. I have heard time and time again from community members their preference for underground transmission in Gippsland, and we as council should also formally take on this position.
Thank you, Councillor Foat. Seconded, Councillor Madeley. Is that motion opposed? Motion not being opposed, it's carried. Happy to speak, Councillor Foat, and then if any other councillors wish to speak after this, certainly they're welcome.
So as part of Victoria's transition to renewable energy, Vic Grid is currently investigating a new transmission line from Gifford to the Loy Yang Power Station. This project is critical to achieving the state's goals of at least 2 gigawatts of offshore wind energy by 2032. The study area for this line spans approximately 50 to 55 kilometres across Gippsland, and VicGrid is refining this area through consultations and technical assessments. Now, VicGrid outlined its guiding principles for this process as to minimise impact on host landholders and communities, including visual amenity, to minimise impact on the environment, minimise impact on First Peoples, cultural values and aspirations, minimise impact on existing and future land use, minimise cost impacts to energy consumers and generators, and limit engineering complexities during construction and impacts on existing infrastructure. Now, these principles are at the core of VicGrid's approach to ensuring the success of renewable energy infrastructure, and I believe they provide a solid foundation for our discussion. In light of these principles, I propose that Wellington Shire Council formally advocates for the underground transmission as a preferred method for electricity transmission in Gippsland, as I outlined in our motion today. The aesthetic and safety benefits, the improved reliability, long-term cost efficiency, and the community preference. So, by advocating for undergrounding, we align directly with VicGrid's guiding principles, particularly minimising impacts on communities and the environment. It's crucial that we take a stand to ensure our energy infrastructure serves both our region and the broader state's renewable energy goals in the most sustainable and responsible way. So I urge the Wellington Shire Council to formally adopt this position and that we all advocate for underground transmission infrastructure in our Shire.
Thank you, Councillor Foat. Did anyone else wish to speak? Thank you. Now we can move then on to Councillor Wells.
I, Councillor Wells, hereby give notice that at the ordinary meeting of Council on Tuesday the 1st of April 2025, I will propose the following notice of motion. That the Council writes to the Premier of Victoria, the Victorian Minister for Local Government and Municipal Associations of Victoria to advocate for councils to remove the requirement for Victorian councils to collect the increased emergency services tax, the Emergency Services and Volunteers Fund, on behalf of the state government on the basis that the 1. Victorian government should utilise the State Revenue Office to directly manage the collection of the new tax. 2. Emergency Services and Volunteers Funds represents a state tax reform and a doubling of the levy, which will unfairly impact on regional ratepayers, particularly Victorian farmers. And 3, administrative burden and increased complexity places too great of an impact on council staff and the reconfiguration of council systems to manage the collection of a state government tax.
Seconded, Councillor Lowe. Is that motion opposed? The motion not being opposed, it's carried. Would you like to speak, and happy for others to speak after this?
Just a bit of background. On December 13, 2024, the Victorian Government, in their wisdom, announced significant changes to the Fire Services Property Levy. The current Fire Services Property Levy will be named Emergency Services and Volunteer Fund. The ESVH will be calculated using 2 components, fixed amount and a variable rate. From 1st of July 2025, the prescribed variable rate component of the Energy Services and Volunteers Fund will significantly increase as follows. Residential is from 8.7 to 17.3 cents, approximately 99% increase. Commercial land, 66.4 cents to 133 cents, which is 100%. Industrial land, from 81.1 cent to 133 cents, which is 64%. And the one that's really going to hurt us is the primary production land, from 28.7 cents to 83%, which is 189% increase. From July 2026, the ESVH requires the council to administer and collect different levies dependent on a residence being principal place of residence or not. In our shire, the largest impact of this charge will be on the primary producers. We have 3,101 primary producers that will have an increase due to the change in the levy. The increase in the levy will be a substantial and unbudgeted price increase. As a regional council, with agriculture being one of the top 3 industries in our shire, there are significant concerns about the new levy and its impact on the shire's farming and commercial community. This new obligation introduces significant administrative complexity and diverts valuable resources away from essential local government functions, assigning councils the responsibility for collecting a statewide tax like the ESVH places unnecessary burden on them, potentially leading to inefficiencies in the service, delivery and fund collection. The process of collecting the ESVH is inefficient, requiring additional payments and very complicated reporting. The situation is exacerbated by provision of 2 funds for eligible volunteers. While this is a great incentive for the community members who volunteer, it requires a substantial increase in the time and resources to assess and determine waiver requests. Moreover, the state government holds the accuracy of the principal place of residence data already used for land tax services. The proposed motion calls for the state government to administer the ESVH. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wells. Would anyone else like to speak to this? Thank you. I have Councillor Lowe and then Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Councillor Wells, for placing a notice of motion through the Council and bringing awareness to this very important issue. I completely agree with your motion. I would like to address the recent increase in the Emergency Services and Volunteers Fund, which will be collected by local councils on behalf of the state government, the Minister of Local Government and the Municipal Association of Victoria. The Australian ratepayer has already been struggling with the rising cost of goods and services due to inflation, government overspending, excessive government debt and a continuous increase in taxes on our population. Wellington Shire Council has a responsibility to balance its budget. If we fail to do so, our community will hold us accountable. It is crucial that our federal and state governments also manage their budgets responsibly and avoid overspending. In recent years, state politicians have allowed debt to grow without ensuring their budgets remain balanced. A recent report from The Age revealed a budget blowout of over $11 billion in major projects under the Victorian government. This is unacceptable. Our role as a local government is to care for our community, reduce costs, maintain roads and infrastructure, and increase opportunities for our citizens, all while maintaining our budgets. If Wellington Shire Council can do this without limited resources, I believe state government has the capacity to do the same. The state government must do better to lower costs for our struggling community. The state government should not be passing the burden of increased expenses onto local councils and, by extension, taxpayers. If they want to increase this fund, they should do it themselves and be held accountable for their decisions. This is simply not acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Councillor Stevens? No? Did you wish to say? Sorry, I thought I saw your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I think it's interesting to note that the original levy was brought into play to replace the fire service levy that people had to pay on their insurances. And at the time, it seemed like not an unreasonable idea. But this proposed levy will more than double the cost to property owners. And it's just unfair in an age when council has rate caps, that we have to issue notices which include a very large impost on all ratepayers and particularly rural ratepayers. So I strongly support this motion. I know that many councils in Victoria are writing to the government along similar lines, and I know that the Municipal Association has already, as I believe, Mayor, got a number of motions for its next State Council to support the same concept. Look, it's just unreasonable for Council to be expected to collect this levy. Our staff have got enough to do as it is without having to have the impact of this increased levy, and people basically think that it's money that we are raising out of rates, which of course clearly it's not. So I commend it's great. Thank you, Councillor Wells, for moving this notice of motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Oh, thank you, Councillor Bannerman.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to add a perhaps broader perspective as the Wellington Shire delegate to the Rural Councils of Victoria. So we meet routinely across the year to discuss issues that are very pertinent to rural and regional, more specifically rural councils specifically, and to present those needs and perspectives to state and federal government and other agencies. In the midst of that, the ESVH has been highly topical since its announcement back in December, right as we're heading into Christmas break. A bit sneaky of the state government there. And I would just like to add in my support of Councillor Wells's motion to this council that the Rural Councils of Victoria have taken an active stance on this and have also actively written to multiple ministers at the state level to have this fund either removed or ameliorated in various ways to make it less completely blatantly unfair.
Thank you, Councillor Bannerman. And it's fair to say it is a disgraceful attack on country Victoria, because our farmers, businesses and families are already battling cost of living pressures, and now the state government wants to gouge them even further. It really is unacceptable. It's nothing short of an outrageous tax hike disguised as reform. Instead of managing their own revenue collection, as we've heard, the state government is dumping that administrative burden onto councils and leaving ratepayers to foot the bill. Wellington Shire has 3,100 odd primary production properties, and all will be impacted. And as one of Victoria's largest regional councils with agriculture as a backbone industry, we are deeply concerned about the financial hit on local farmers and businesses. The impact on our farming and commercial community will be devastating. The state government is making councils the middleman in their tax collection scheme, which will probably bear the brunt of that backlash. Under the new levy, we're required to collect an additional $5.5 million in charges this year alone, which is a $3.3 million increase across the 3,100 primary production properties, a $1 million increase across the residential properties, and it's just $512,000 across industrial, $636,000 across commercial, taking money out of our communities that the community just cannot afford at the moment. For individual ratepayers, this means the amount appearing on their rates notices will soar, and we've seen examples of that tonight. So not only do we think it's a poor tax and it unfairly targets the regional areas, that administrative burden is going to be significant, and in fact a lot of it is not actually known yet. Known at the moment. We're not going to have appropriate guidelines on it, yet they're expecting us to collect this for them. And you know what happens if it doesn't get collected properly is the council still has to wear the cost of sending that money into the state government. So I certainly thank you, Councillor Wells, for bringing this forward. I certainly hope there's people listening at Spring Street, because there is sheer anger across all the councils at this burden that is being placed over all the communities. And sneaking it in the back door through council rates notices. Personally, I think it's pretty gutless. If they really want to actually add these taxes to the community, along with all the other taxes, actually stand up and put it out there yourself. Don't expect others to sneak it in through the back door, because I think it's actually, I'd even call it sleazy myself. But anyway, thank you, Councillor Wells, for that, and I really appreciate you putting the effort into putting that motion up. We move on now, councillors, on to receiving of petitions or joint letters. The first petition we have to deal with is actually being responded to at item 13.2 of the agenda about the lights installed at Stead Street Reserve. The second item at 7.2 is the petition of community interest in sealing roads in Mann's Beach. and I certainly look for a motion there. No, there's not another motion coming up. Could I have a motion moved there, please, councillors? Thank you, Councillor Stevens.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the council receive the attached petition regarding community interest in sealing the roads at Mann's Beach and refer it to the General Manager, Built and Natural Environment, for a report to a future council meeting.
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Wells. Is that motion opposed? The motion not being opposed is carried. Did you wish to speak, Councillor?
Yeah, just briefly, Mayor. Look, this is standard policy, of course, for council to receive a petition and seek a report at a future meeting. It's very pleasing to see the petitioners are interested in sealing their roads. I think the special charge scheme system for sealing roads has been very successful, especially since the council brought in a capped amount, I think in the order of about $3,300 in most cases per property owner. So I look forward to receiving the General Manager's report and seeing if this can be progressed to a suitable outcome for all concerned. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. We move on to invited addresses, presentations or acknowledgements. I believe we have. Thank you, Councillor Madeley. Bless you.
Bless you, Councillor Lowe. Thank you, Mayor. On Saturday, I attended the opening of the Flooding Creek section of the Sale Common Wetlands Trail. This has been a project that has been undertaken over the past 6 years by the Rotary Club of Sale, led by Philip Davis. We now have a fantastic 4.5 kilometre gravel track that completes the loop for walking, cycling and jogging. This new section allows people to experience the beauty of the Sale Common wetlands like never before. The connection from the Sale CBD to Lake Guyot to the Sale Commons is now more accessible than ever, making it the perfect spot for both locals and tourists to enjoy. So well done to the Rotary Club of Sale, Parks Victoria, also Wellington Shire Council and other partners and stakeholders for their hard work and determination in bringing the project to fruition. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Madeley. We have no questions on notice. We move then on to delegates' reports. Thank you, Councillor Madeley.
Sorry, me again. Last week, Councillor Taddison and I attended the Aqua Energy Redevelopment Project meeting. So this project is progressing well with 95% of steelworks completed and 40% of roofing works completed. Over the next couple of months, there will be a lot of work happening, such as tiling, grouting, window framing completed, and pool plant equipment will be installed. I know Sale and people from other areas are very excited to get the pool finished and up and running. Currently, the winter timetable is being finalised and the bulk of aquatic activity will be moved to the West Sale Pool during the colder months. So to stay up to date, do keep an eye on the Aqua Energy Facebook page and hopefully we won't be too far away from our brand new pool.
Very exciting times. Thank you, Councillor Madeley. Councillor Wells, did you...
Thank you. On the 18th of March, I attended a meeting for the Gippsland Critical Minerals. It was held in Lindenow. It was an overview of the new project, and there was, at the start, they enforced that the old project, which was put forward by Kelbar, had miscomings, and we've got to take into plan that is no longer, nothing from that project is live, and, you know, there was a lot of bad things with that. The key issues that we looked at was water, where they were going to get it from, how they were going to get it, how they were going to reuse it, and what was going to happen with the wastewater. Dust and noise was another issue. Then after we got through that couple of hours of discussing the new project and the machinery and what they were going to do in the rehabilitation, they're going to set up a demo to trial all their new equipment and bits and pieces on a small area. So we did a site tour of the demo area. So that was quite interesting. We went back and had a bit of a general chat. There was people there that were anti it, and there was people there that were for the project. And it was actually, to credit to everyone that was there, it was everyone was really well behaved, and it was a very positive meeting. One note that I should make, and maybe it might bite me, but no one from East Gippsland Shire was present, and I thought that was poor. So, other than that, we've got another meeting coming up soon, and yeah, they've got a long way to go, but it's got its positives for doing that mine in Lindenow. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wells. Anyone else wish to present delegates reports? No? Thank you. We move then on to item 11.1, the Assembly of Councillors report. Do we have a motion there, councillors? Thank you, Councillor Madley.
I move that Council note and receive the attached Assembly of Councillor records for the period 10th of March 2025 to 23rd of March 2025.
That motion seconded. Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Is that motion opposed? Motion not being opposed, it's carried. Did you wish to say anything?
Just briefly, the Assembly of Councillors reports outlines any meetings that we may have attended, or councillors are members of certain groups and we meet throughout the month. It also details the workshops that we undertake during our council days. So if anyone ever wanted to know what do we do and what do we learn about during our council days, it's all here in this report.
And it's noted in the background of that report that it was something we used to have to do. We no longer are required to do it, but council, as a matter of good governance, still chooses to put those that detail in there so that the community has some transparency in what the councillors are up to, who's on what committees and who's turning up and doing what. So thank you, Councillor Madley. We move on to 11.2, the C6 Instrument of Delegation Community Asset Committees. Thank you, Councillor Lowe.
I move that in exercise of the power conferred by Section 65 of the Local Government Act 2020, Council resolves that 1. All current C6 instruments of delegation to community asset committees are revoked. 2. That from the date of this resolution, there be established 5 community asset committees as detailed in the attached C6 instrument of delegations to community asset committees. And 3. The power to approve committee members' appointments to these community asset committees is delegated to the Chief Executive Officer.
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Bannerman. Is that motion opposed? Motion not being opposed, it's carried. Did you wish to speak, Councillor Lowe?
Yeah. The 5 community assets that are currently managed by committees are 1. Barraglon Recreation Reserve Committee, 2. Cameron Sporting Complex Committee, 3. Gordon Street Reserve Committee, 4. Maffra Recreation Reserve Committee, and 5. Newry Recreation Reserve Committee.
Perfect. Thanks, Councillor Lowe. We move on to 11.3, the updated risk management strategy and risk appetite statements. We have a motion there, councillors. Thank you, Councillor Bannerman.
I move that Council adopt the updated risk management strategy and risk appetite statements as attached.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Lowe. Is that motion opposed? Motion not being opposed, it's carried. Thank you, Councillor Bannerman.
Just wish to note that a lot of work goes into creating this risk assessment background work and scaffolding for council to operate within, so that we're trying to get the balance right of making sure that we are protecting our assets and our people, but also not stifling ourselves in the process. So a lot of work's gone into here. Thank you to the staff who have put all that work in to preparing this report.
And we had some terrific work today with the Audit and Risk Committee, and who do go through, especially external members, certainly put a lot of difficult questions into council to make sure that we're running safely and prudently and with good governance. Move on to the quarterly building report 12.1. Thank you, Councillor Fote.
I move that Council note the report of building permits issued from 1st of October 2024 to 31st of December 2024.
Seconded by Councillor Wells. Is that motion opposed? Motion not being opposed, it's carried. Councillor Fote.
I just wanted to say that building permits are issued by private building surveyors and copies of permits are provided to council. Now, the permits, plans and other documents are filed by council and recorded on a register of building permits. So building permits are issued for a range of developments, including dwellings, extensions and fences, as well as commercial and industrial buildings. For the period, as mentioned, 1st of October to 31st of December 2024, there were 221 permits issued with an estimated value of works at $26,370,403. The major projects that were listed included Hayfield, the warehouse extension at Ash Timber, Winnendoo, the dog boarding kennels, Yarram, the Yarram Pool plant room and balance tank, and also at Yarram was the hotel alterations and renovations to the club hotel.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor Fote. We move on to the Regional Housing Supply Parliamentary Inquiry, 12.2. Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Given the nature of this motion, if the motion's passed, I'm happy for anyone who wishes to speak to do so after the mover.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move that Council note the officer's submission, refer attachment 12.21, made to the Victorian Legislative Assembly Environment and Planning Committee in relation to the Parliamentary Inquiry into the supply of homes in regional Victoria.
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Wells. Is that motion opposed? The motion not being opposed, it's carried. Councillor Stead?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm going to make considered comments in relation to this proposal because wearing my other hat as the Secretary of the Nightingale Park Society in Yarram, which caters for affordable housing for older adults, I've been somewhat frustrated by the way in which the state government has responded to various requests my society has made to consider placing additional affordable housing for older people in our community. And I would hope that in the near future, for the whole of this shire, the government can actually take some steps to develop more affordable housing, social housing, for everyone, not just older people in our communities, because there seems to be a lack of understanding of the need for affordable and social housing in the Wellington Shire. And if we can get some positive feedback and engagement with the government department, then I would be optimistic enough to hope that something can happen in the near future, because there is clearly a need which doesn't seem to have been recognised by the state government up to date. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Did anyone else wish to speak? No. It's one of those areas in housing supply is often there's layers of compliance that's put in place on developers developing land, and country areas, especially our smaller communities, are the ones that are the canaries in the coal mine, because if you're developing land in Pakenham, where you're selling your block of land for a way higher price than we have in the country, then they can afford to have a few more layers of compliance and a few more expenses. Whereas if you're in Hayfield or in Yarram or in Stratty, it's a lot harder to get that money back. So we have, on one hand, the government really wanting to see these blocks of land developed, and in fact structuring the tax system to encourage people to do it. But on the other hand, it's becoming a lot of the rules that come from state government are actually making it more expensive to develop these blocks, which means that ultimately a lot of the blocks are unviable to develop, and the people who own the blocks are between a rock and a hard place. Do they develop it at a loss to avoid these other requirements? So these sorts of I actually am pleased that Parliamentary Inquiry is asking for submissions, because this sort of information is important for them to know. Because what happens in a city environment is very different to what happens in the rural environment. As we come to the next item, ladies and gentlemen, Councillors, 13.1, I know that we've had a conflict of interest declared by Councillor Fote.
Yes, so I declared my conflict of interest with this item of 13.1 with the Plant and Equipment Services panel, as my brother's business, Smolina's Plumbing, is listed as one of the tenders, which means I have a general interest conflict. So therefore I will remove myself from the meeting while it's brought to the table.
Thank you. Councillor Fote is leaving the building. or leaving the room. So it's Elvis who's leaving the building. Do I have a motion, councillors? Thank you. Councillor Lowe.
I move that the council, 1, receives and considers this report and all attachments pertaining to this report, and 2, accepts the schedule of rates for plant and equipment services for 2-year term with 2 extension options of 12 months to be made available solely at council discretion as outlined in the confidential attachment as submitted by the following companies. Okay, Whelan's Group, Cranes Asphalting, RP&J Orchard, Conway's Earth Moving, Kieran Tilt Tray Services, Callister Earth Moving, McGuinness Earth Moving, Gippsland Directional Drilling, CD Willocks, Heathfield Building Group, Bryco Civil Construction, D&J O'Brien Plumbing and Gas Fitting, Dirt Maintenance, East Vic Land Management, MJMEXC Pty, Total Drain Cleaning Services, RC Elliott Excavations, A1 Crane Hire, Smonars Plumbing, H&H Contracting, Hallam Earthworks, GMA Wastewater Services, Rollers Australia, Bensdale Road Services, Kirkham Farms, Shoeback Excavations. And 3, the information contained in the confidential attachment contract 2025-147, tender valuation plant and equipment supply, is designated confidential under Section 3-1, Confidential Information of the Local Government Act 2020 by the General Manager, Built and Natural Environment on the 21st of March 2025 because it relates to the following grounds. GII, private commercial information being information provided by the businesses, commercial or financial undertaking that, if released, would be unreasonably expose the business, commercial or financial undertaking to a disadvantage. B, designated confidential information under Section 3-1, Confidential Information of the Local Government Act 2020, except that once this recommendation has been adopted, the name of the successful tenders can be made public.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Ripper. Is that motion opposed? The motion not being opposed is carried, so I can announce the successful 26 panel providers listed that I won't reread again. At item 2 of the recommendation will be included in the panel for supply of plant and equipment services. Did you wish to speak, Councillor Lowe?
Yep, this is just for new equipment for London Shire Council so they can maintain our road services throughout the Shire.
Terrific. And we can invite Councillor Foat back into the room. Thank you, Councillor Foat. We move on to item 13.2. I mentioned earlier on the response to the petition, lights at Stead Street Oval Reserve, was coming through the agenda at this point. Can I have a motion, please? Thank you, Councillor Madeley.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the Chief Executive Officer write to the head petitioner advising that Council will undertake further planning work to program the installation of lighting into Stead Street Oval Reserve in Sale.
Thank you. That motion seconded. Councillor Stevens. Is the motion opposed? The motion not being opposed is carried. Did you wish to speak?
Thank you. Just a quick bit of background. Early March, Council received a petition regarding lighting at the Stead Street Oval Reserve. Stead Street Reserve was identified to be developed into a district open space through Council's public open space plan, with the addition of a play space, ball sports area and refurbishment of toilet facilities attached to the hall. The reserve has become a popular destination for surrounding residents of all ages. There's also plans in place to enhance and increase the activation of the community facility, including evening use by the Girl Guides of Sale. Lighting the reserve will add programming ability as well as provide a sense of security. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Madeley. The next item, 14.1, you've declared a conflict of interest. Thank you.
I have. I declare a conflict of interest with item 14.1. This is a general interest conflict relating to Seed Community Garden, of which I'm on the committee, receiving a quick response grant, and I will remove myself from the meeting while the item is discussed. Thank you.
Councillor Madeley is leaving the chamber. Thank you, councillors. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor Ripper.
I'd like to move that Council note the information regarding applications received under the Quick Response Grant Scheme, QRGS, for the period November 2024 to February 2025, as per attachment 14.1.1.
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Fote. Is that motion opposed? Motion not being opposed, it's carried. Councillor River.
A little bit of background, Mayor. The QRGS aims to fulfil community needs by providing a quick turnaround for funding and provides an opportunity for the community to access funding outside the community assistance grants timeline. The QRGS supports the delivery of projects that demonstrate positive impacts on the wider Wellington community. Eligible projects submitted under this program are assessed within 2 working weeks. Not-for-profit community groups operating in Wellington Shire can apply for up to $2,500. Up to $500 is available for an individual sponsorship category, and up to $1,500 is available in the teams and community groups category. Up to $500 rebate is available to community groups who engage an approved auditor to undertake the energy efficient audit of their facility. I reference the attachment of energy rebate guidelines and criteria. The Shire spent from November 23 to March 24, the successful applicants, $56,323.37. And of those, we had 20 successful community grants. And just like some of them, I'll just pick out a couple here. The Hayfield Community Resource Centre, they held an open gardens and they received $2,500. Seed Community Gardens in Sale, a Safety and Visibility, $1,400. And also we had 3 under the successful individual sponsorship and team community groups. And I advise anyone in the community, these are available and there is assistance to help you fill in your applications. And also at the moment, I think from memory, this week there's a briefing in Hayfield that's setting out how you go about. So there's plenty of staff work very, very hard to assist everyone with the grants. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Ripper. And I think the element with these as well is it's a good news story getting this money out, but I think the better news story is actually all the community groups who are doing this work on the ground. This is kind of helping them as they race ahead doing things inside our community. So it's nice to be able to help them because we know that the amount of money that we're putting out here, there's so much more value in the volunteers' time in what they're providing for our communities. And I love the diversity through all of those different groups that you've mentioned, because I know they're all very highly valued in those communities. And if we can help them a bit, I know that ratepayers support the distribution of these monies to those groups because these groups do so much great work. Can we invite Councillor Madeley, Deputy Mayor, back in, please? Thank you. Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Do we have any online comments? No gallery comments. So we have no reason to go into closed session. So I'll declare the meeting closed at 5:43. Thank you, everyone.